All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Naperville Park District Board of Commissioners at 6:30 p.m. on July 28th, 2022. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Bridget, can we please have the roll?
President Gibson?
Here.
Vice President Ruffing?
Here.
Commissioner Ansier?
Here.
Commissioner Janner? Absent. Commissioner McBroom? Absent. Commissioner Thompson? Absent. Commissioner Todd?
Here.
All right, do we have any matters from the public?
We do not.
All right, could we please, Bridget, do you mind reading the consent agenda?
Not at all. Item 3.1, approve June 2022 FinTech disbursements in the amount of $5,666.65. 3.2, approve July 14, 2022 regular meeting minutes. 3.3, approve July 14, 2022 executive session closed meeting minutes. 3.4, approve resolution 22-10, naming the pavilion to be constructed at Knock Knolls Park, Frank J. Russ Pavilion. 3.5, award the contract for the Frontier Sports Complex Gate Facility Lighting Installation Project to Musco Sports Lighting LLC in the amount of $102,480. And 3.6, approve ordinance 1019, accepting a grant of temporary construction easement by Pulte Home Corporation LLC to the Naperville Park District.
Thank you. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
I'd like to remove item 3.6.
All right, thank you.
Move to accept consent agenda items 3.1 through 3.5.
Second. Roll call.
Vice President Ruffing?
Yes.
Commissioner Ansier?
Yes.
Commissioner Todd?
Yes.
President Gibson?
Yes.
Move to accept consent agenda items 3.1 through 3.5.
We did that, didn't we? Accept?
Move to approve?
Sorry, approve. Did I say approve? I meant approve. Move
Second.
to approve consent agenda.
All right. Voice vote, please.
A second, please.
Marie
I
seconded.
second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Okay,
Now 3.6.
Move to approve ordinance 1019 as amended, accepting a grant of temporary construction easement by Pulte Home Corporation LLC to the Naperville Park District as amended, authorizing terms and conditions of a gifting agreement between, nope, that's,
Oh, okay, read the agenda item, the consent agenda item.
let's try that again.
I think you're good. I'll second.
Oh. All right, roll call, please.
No, you don't need to redo that. So what this is lawyers. We thought we had it done, then as my writing teacher told me, we're never done writing, we're just out of time as lawyers. So they thought they'd take advantage of the time, and they had a couple of small edits they wanted. They're not substantive. So with the small edits that are more peculiar to our partner Pulte, which has been a great partner, but this is peculiar to this particular development of theirs. So that's what's a little different. That's why we pulled it off of consent, because it's not exactly what was in your packets. So in the name of full transparency, we're here getting it approved off the consent agenda to alert you to the fact that there were a couple of stylistic or, I don't know, really technical changes, but not substantive ones. And so we're pleased to move forward with it. It's a creative way to get park improvements to the first wave of residents in this development. It obviously helps Pulte market the development, but it also is us fulfilling the mission of the Park District. So with that, that's what happened. I'm happy to answer any questions, as is Eric, but that's where we're at.
Thanks. Does anybody have any questions about the changes?
No.
Right, thank you. All right, so roll call, please.
Vice President Ruffing?
Yes.
Commissioner Todd?
Yes.
Commissioner Ansier?
Yes.
Commissioner Janner?
Yes.
President Gibson?
Yes. All right. New business, Ron Ori Community Garden Plots Site Master Plan Presentation.
While Eric's getting ready, Madam President, as a point of order, Commissioner Janner wasn't here for the vote on the consent agenda, but just for the sake of checking off all the boxes, Commissioner Janner, did you have any objection to the naming of the pavilion? That was one of the items on the consent agenda, and I just want to make sure that we can count your vote as a yes vote on that.
It's a yes, thank you.
Thank you. So, Bridget, let the record reflect that Commissioner Janner voted yes on that one.
So good evening. Thank you so much. We have a presentation tonight, really a treat for the board. It's the Ron Ori Community Garden Plot Site Master Plan. Michelle Kelly with Upland Design is with us this evening, and she was part of the group, as you may recall, years ago in formulating the site master plan for Wolf's Crossing Community Park. We brought Michelle on early this year to develop this site master plan. As you may also recall, earlier in the year, we received some input from residents about adding new amenities, different types of programming additions at the garden plots, and we realized there's only a little bit of limited space left at the garden plots, and we want to make sure that we do it mindful when we add new improvements and we involve the entire community. So we conducted a very extensive community outreach in formulating the site master plan. Before I hand over to Michelle, I just want to talk about next steps. After tonight we present it to the board, we intend to present the site master plan and the presentation slides on our website, pending any changes or adjustments we might make based on board input and comment tonight. Also in this process, we received a tremendous amount of input from residents about operations and maintenance. What about fertilizers? What about these no-till sites? And we realized some of those on the maintenance side are going to require more time for our staff to evaluate and spending time with gardeners to ensure that we have the right programming. And those types of recommendations will also be posted on our website later. Ultimately, our goal is to, based on the input tonight we received, post on our website, and then in August, if we're ready to go, present the site master plan to the board for formal approval. This site master plan is essentially a visionary document. It's a roadmap that helps us to move forward, but there's some other items that we'll talk about in a moment as far as actual projects and phasing and costs that we're still going to work on, and we'll keep it posted. So now I'll hand it over to Michelle.
Thank you, Eric. Thanks for having me here this evening. Please stop me at any time if you have a question with a slide or anything about the project. All right, so first I want to go through the planning phases of the project. Get to the right spot here. And I have to say it was really enjoyable to meet with so many enthusiastic people during this project. Every time we had a meeting, people were just passionate and in a really positive way because we were there to listen. I think there was a little intrepidation at first, like, what are you doing with my garden plots? But as we explained the vision and the mission of the project, people were all on board. So we started with the existing condition analysis, had a stakeholder meeting right after that, presented that, had a slew of questions for our stakeholder meeting. It was kind of a focus group of master gardeners and people that may have been on site for a long time, even a couple new gardeners that had some great input. And then that helped inform us to go to that community meeting number 1 and be able to kind of know the right questions. So we had a full survey, it went online with that first community meeting, and then we were able to develop a project program. And that was a guiding document of the goals of the gardeners and the community for the site before we actually put pen to paper on a design. So then we went to designs, concepts, and we worked with the Park District on kind of getting those just right. And so we had 2 different concepts and took that to another public meeting. And those were out on site. So we actually had boards and a lot of tape because it was a little windy, and had gardeners able to kind of go to stations and talk to people and get a lot of one-on-one FaceTime, as well as have a survey that again was online. So lots of different ways to get that input. And then we went to our preliminary master plan, cost estimate and phasing plan, which you'll see this evening. And committee review was on July 14th, and that went extremely well. So you're seeing pretty much the same plan that they saw. All right, And here's our vision statement. So this is what we presented at the very beginning to everyone, is the vision of this project was to enhance the community gardens through maintaining existing garden plots while diversifying and improving site elements at the community gardens. So they knew right away, we're not making the gardens smaller, we're not putting sports fields on the gardens. We are here to make them better. This was our existing conditions. I won't go into a lot of detail, but there are a couple little drainage issues. Parking lots all gravel. There's a few things that really came apparent that could be improved by doing this initial analysis. And then here is our overall master plan. It's really small, so I'm only going to stay on this slide a second. What's important is on the very northeast part of this plan, you'll see a new parking area. And that really is going to be part of a future project, but it was really part of this planning to show that some additional parking is needed, potentially paved, a crosswalk to get across the street to the other existing recreational facilities that people are using. So I just want to point out that was part of this process. All right, so here's our overall master plan. And what's some of the important things about this is how we're improving usability for the gardeners. So the plan, the number one you see in the upper right-hand corner, that's the master gardener plots. And those are staying where they are, and that's a place for people to come and talk to master gardeners as well as to see a really great example garden. And then the green stars are each signage kiosk locations. So those are places where signage, like inside sort of a glass case or a Lexan case, can be posted and changed over time. So gardeners can get information, as well as sometimes even learn or be directed to the website for additional information. And then our red stars are waste disposal locations. So those are, there's 3 of those across the site. And then we move into restroom enclosures. So the idea was definitely talked about as permanent restrooms. But when discussed with the gardeners, they really like the idea of multiple restroom locations. And if we went to a single building, we'd have one. So they did not like that. So this is how we got to multiple restrooms with a nice enclosure, a Naperville Park District standard. So you can see those 4 different locations across the site as the blue number 2s. And then we have compost and manure locations. There's 3 of those. There is one right now that's kind of by the maintenance area, and that will be taken back to maintenance use. But that's why you see 2 ones on the very south side, so accessible from both sides. And then another amenity that's really, I think, going to enhance the gardens is our purple diamonds, number 4s. Those are going to be shade and seating that's added at existing Spigot locations. The Spigot locations really become little social spots in the gardens where gardeners come together. They need to, switch out and get some water, and they can talk to each other. And this is a way for them to actually have a place to sit and rest, especially for some of our gardeners that are getting older, and then and even get a little bit of shade when they're out there working, maybe on a Saturday afternoon. Next is the lawn parking. That's not changing. You can see those are just right along the drives on one side of the drives. Next is seating areas at the Spigot. So we're not doing shade at every Spigot location, but we're adding seating to most of them, and that's our yellow diamonds. Finally, the last 2 pieces are the Idea Woodland Garden. It's at the top in the center, number 6. And number 7 are pollinator gardens. And there are 3 locations, one right next to the woodland garden, and then 2 more on the very south side. There was a lot of positive feedback on the existing pollinator gardens, and so we were able to add some additional spaces for that. All right, so this next one, we lose all our diamonds and stars, but we focus just a little bit more on the actual garden plots. You'll see on the far west side are green garden plots. And so these are going to be our organic ones so that people that don't want to use pesticides or herbicides will be able to have that same spots and know that the gardeners next to them also don't. Just to the north of that are already existing raised garden plots. We're adding some additional ones and putting paving around them. And part of that is so that we'll have raised organic spots for people, as well as making them more accessible. So there's also a little paved parking spot to pull off. Right now, the raised plots, which are often for people that have some kind of mobility issue or bending issue, they are not super accessible with any kind of paving near them. So that's one of the changes you'll see throughout is improved accessibility for gardeners. So that's the west. In the center are standard tilled plots, both full size and half size, all the way over to the east side for easy access in the parking. Lots of gardeners have their favorite spots, so for the vast majority, there's no change. But you'll see there's a dark green area on the far southeast side, and that is a no-till garden area. There are people that are really excited about the idea of no-till. There's science behind it. It means something if you're a gardener and you're interested in that, and this gives gardeners an opportunity to ask for one of those plots. They also potentially could have a longer garden season because there's no till. Gardeners normally can't have their garden until it's been tilled and staked. So this would give an area for maybe gardeners to be able to get in a little bit earlier or stay a little later and have that late crop. So that line that you see between the brown and the green can be moved as gardeners want. We have more people that want no-till, that can move up. But in any case, we want those no-tills to be together because you can't just have a no-till in the middle of the rest of the gardens. It just doesn't work. All right, a few other things. On the northeast side, you'll see the parking lot is a dark gray. So that is improving that parking area by paving it. It could be a permeable paver or it could be an asphalt. That's kind of left to be determined on some stormwater and budget issues. But what's nice is right off that, we will also have more raised garden plots and paving, so it's easy to get in and out, as well as there was a new spigot installed in that area recently, so there's water available right next to it. So wonderful access. And then the Idea Garden, just to the north of those raised beds, you'll see has been there a long time, is a favorite, but we're also adding accessibility in that with a cross of pavement, some picnic tables on the north side for meeting, as well as an additional walk that runs, I don't want to see if I can do this. Oh yeah, it runs right here. And that goes through the woodland garden and provides another area with some picnic tables. So the master gardeners could do a little bit of a class out there, or people could meet and have a picnic. So it really gives some additional seating areas in the overall garden. All right. I think I covered most. Does anybody have any other questions on on the plan before I know it was a lot of information.
I have a question. The no-till plots, will that affect our pumpkin smash? Can we still do that?
Great question.
No, that would not affect the pumpkin smash. We have quite a bit of area that we would still be able to do that without affecting the no-till plot
Go
area.
backwards or something. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Very good. All right. So this next slide with our big circles, this is, we're just looking at uses for the existing spigots. The Parks District added a couple spigots in the early part of this year, so there wasn't a lot of area that wasn't covered. This is about a 125-foot radius. You don't want people to have to go too far with their water. But you can see the big blue circle, that's the one that we're suggesting one more be added so that everyone has really good coverage. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Eric to talk about phasing and costs.
So as part of this process, we also want to look at the improvements and how they fit with priority. So the first group, there's 3 phases. So like the top phase, phase 1, is what we identify as the top priority tier. And we're looking at AD accessibility. So you see the improvement there, a new and organic raised beds and accessible walks. We think this is probably one of the most important aspects of the project. We think this would be one that we would tackle first. As you can see there, there's no years of implementation because we first want to present it to the board tonight to talk about these priorities and then also refine the cost estimates. As we know, there's a lot of changes in the market right now and the bidding cycles, and so we will refine that, but we want to give you an idea of what that's going to look like. And so the first one, as I mentioned, would be the the accessible walk along asphalt and gravel parking lot with the organic raised beds. The water spigot, as Michelle mentioned, there'd be one that we would add to ensure that overall coverage across the garden plots. Next would be the south asphalt paved parking lot, which would be the 82 spaces and 5 ADA spaces. And this is really going to be dependent upon stormwater management. We'll be working with the city of Naperville to learn more about creative ways how to handle stormwater on site. The last thing we want to do is propose improvements and then identify we have to take away plots. And so we'll have to figure out creatively how do we do that, whether it's utilizing the existing site or maybe finding something, off-site like at the Pine Sportsman's Park. Could we store stormwater there? So we're already exploring ideas, but we want to work closely with engineers to figure that out before we plan that project. No-till garden plots. This would be, as Michelle mentioned as well, would be something that line can move up and down. That's going to be based on gardeners' needs and interests and working with our staff. So we don't know the answer to that yet, but we'll continue to work with gardeners to find out where they're at, to identify, perhaps how many plots would be open for no-till. And the next tier of priority, phase 2, would be the idea gardens, metal shade structures. That would be in future years, as well as phase 3. Now, the garden informational kiosk, we think we could probably turn that around next year. If there's, as the board reviews and endorses this plan, that would be something we can add to our 2023 capital budget. And then restroom enclosures, material storage, these are important, but these just have a little lower priority than the other items. So we just want to share that with you, just give you an idea of where we're at as staff as far as, where do we go from here and next steps in the process.
Thanks, Eric. Can you explain the cost for the no-till parts? What is that cost going to?
Yes. So it's initially what that was stakes to define the area.
Okay.
And install them with the labor associated with it. Oh, yeah, thanks. Yeah, so the $7,741, that's really for the stakes to identify the areas and line it out for gardeners when we do that. So it is a rough estimate. So if that spacing changes as far as it gets bigger, that cost might go up a little bit.
Okay, because we need stakes for each individual plot.
Yeah.
And they'd be permanent instead, like right now, the stakes go in every year after the tilling and they're temporary, and these would be permanent stakes. It could end up being $2,500, it's just right now, wood is so expensive.
Okay.
Yeah, so and again, these are ballpark figures. And so when we get to the part of implementation, we'll actually look at the, accurate pricing we're receiving from the bidding phase at the time, and we'll have more refined numbers to share with the board before we would bring contracts for consideration and approval.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Hey, Eric, on the parking, just to be clear, so this kind of tall, skinny sliver, that's not part of the scope right now. It's just there, you're just pointing it out because it may be something that we do in the future.
Yes.
And then the parking lot that is part of the scope, what else is that used for throughout the year? Maybe Brad knows better than anybody. What else is that used for throughout the year other than the garden plots?
Yeah, actually, that parking lot gets heavy use by the fields that are located across the street in Knock Park South. So typically in the evenings, especially during the baseball season, you'll see a lot of cars parking there. We fill up the Knock South parking lot that's in the park, but then individuals park across the street. So quite a bit of garden plot use, but also that lot is used extensively by the activities in Knock Park right across the street.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were going to say. So I guess my question on this is, if you look at this, if you're a resident, you look at this and you look at it quickly, you say, oh man, they're spending 1.2 or whatever million on the garden plots. But when you actually look at it, it's over half or about half is on the parking lot. So I wonder, as this is presented to the public, just because sometimes people look at things at a high level, I mean, is it really a parking lot project and a garden plots project? And is it more accurate to present it to the public separately, because it really is, I mean, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely, and I have an answer for that.
Yeah.
So essentially what this is for the southern portion. So the cost you see up there is not for the northern portion of the parking lot.
Right,
That's
but
separate.
even so, weren't you referring to the southern portion, Brad?
Correct. I'm referring to the southern portion. So yes, I know exactly what you're talking about, Commissioner Janner. The fact that the parking lot in that southern portion really is utilized by more than
Right.
just the garden plots. So it's not tied completely to the garden plots or only supporting the garden plots. So as we look at communication out, we can certainly call out the fact that that parking lot is extensively utilized and would benefit the other uses within Knock Park.
Right, it seems like we really have two projects. We have a parking lot project and a garden plots project, because someone looks at this quickly and says, oh, man, they're spending 1.2, what are they doing? It seems like maybe it should be presented more accurately for what exactly it is, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think we can add a note to the plans, like moving forward, to further clarify that what it's for.
Yeah, I mean, again,
Just so people know what it, based on when we get to the the point of actual implementation, they know what that's for.
Right.
And-
right, because some people don't read
Absolutely.
the fine print, they're not going to maybe read the small note, but again, say it's the third time, it seems like two projects, a parking lot project and a garden plots project, so when you look at the heading, it says garden plots, and you get to the bottom line, 1.2 or whatever it is, it seems like it's two separate projects. It's my opinion.
Yeah, we could definitely split it out.
Anyone else agree, or is it?
I think that's a really good point, especially since it's such a significant
Sure.
proportion of it.
Right, I mean, it's half.
And just for clarification, these slides are planned to be presented tomorrow, but really it's a site master plan.
Sure.
And then when we get to the final deliverable and we present it to the board for consideration in August, we can have all that updated and changed, so, just for clarity purposes. Does that
Thank you.
work?
I think so. I hear what you're saying, though,
Yeah.
Commissioner Janner. I think that makes a lot of sense. That's so many different facets of that area use that
Make the change
parking lot.
tomorrow? Okay. Yeah, we'll work to make that change and before we post it even tomorrow. All right,
Awesome.
any other questions? No?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you both. Thanks for all your work on this. And thanks to all the community members who came to all these meetings, too. I know there's a lot of input.
President Gibson?
Yes.
I just want to thank Michelle and your team. You did an outstanding job. This was a great project to go through and to hear from so many different gardeners who are very passionate about the program, passionate about the garden plots. And so, we look forward to continuing to work through and enhancing the garden plots, as well as Eric mentioned, working on some of the operational items that came up during this process as well. So, thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right. Thanks. Next is Heatherstone Park and Willow Park Basketball Court Renovation Project.
Yeah, so just a quick update on this item. A contract for the Heatherstone Park, Willow Park Basketball Court Renovation Project is anticipated to be presented to the Park Board for approval in August. For both locations, the scope of work consists of removing and replacing the asphalt basketball court, color coding, striping, and basketball goals. A total of $130,000 is allocated in the 2022 capital budget for these projects. Pending contract approval, the project work is slated to commence in summer with the goal to reach substantial completion in early fall. So just an update on that item.
I have a question. Why are they being completed at the same time? Because geographically, they're not necessarily close to each other, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we decided since the scopes are similar and with the current bidding market, it made sense to combine the two together. And then so essentially too, it helps us because then we're only presenting one contract to Dirk for review and one contract for you for approval. So since they are going to be done at the same time, they're essentially the same scope of work, it made sense to consolidate them.
Great, thanks. Other questions? All right, thank you. All right, thanks. Next up is 95th Street Center Lease.
Okay, good evening. As we are nearing the end of the year, our lease for the 95th Street Center is set to expire on December 31st. As you may recall, we entered into the original agreement back in 2012. Since 2012, we have extended the lease and amended the terms several times. Earlier this month, the Parks and Rec Committee discussed the options, and it is our recommendation to extend the current lease for the 95th Street Center for 1 year. We feel this extension would provide us additional time to assess the survey results that we recently received and to utilize the information that is gathered during the strategic planning process to determine the needs and set direction for the future. Brad has reached out to the property owner, and he would be willing to extend our lease for 1 additional year. The owner is proposing a 10% increase to our annual lease due to the increase in utility and operational expenses, which we have not seen since, for the last 5 years, we haven't seen an increase. This increase would equate to $13,000, taking it to $116,000 annually. Our plan is to bring this to the board for approval at the next board meeting. Anybody have any questions?
No questions for me.
Okay.
Thanks, Director Coates.
Thanks.
Great. 2023 July 4th fireworks display?
Yes, this topic was discussed briefly at the last Parks and Recreation Committee meeting. We're already in the process of working to line up the fireworks for 2023 over the July 4th weekend. This is something that we now do and have been doing in partnership with the City of Naperville. So in working with Dirk, one of the concerns was that there are various fireworks companies out there, but looking at the professionalism that's associated with putting on something like this and the logistics associated with it, what we intend to do is work with a contractor, potentially the same contractor that we had this year that we had a very good experience with, and bring to the board a contract and also ask the board to find that the reliability and the professionalism in the logistical planning for the July 4th fireworks display is important and therefore not adapted to straight competitive bidding. So certainly it's something that we would look to negotiate and get a good price for the display, but find that due to those factors, it's not a straight competitive bid as with some other projects. So wanted to provide that update to the board this evening. We are working to also look at potentially having those fireworks on July 4th. This year it was on July 3rd, but we need to work through some scheduling with that.
Great. Director Wilson, are we confident that, how soon do we need to save the date with companies?
I expect to bring something to you very soon. In talking with the fireworks company from this past year, I know, and especially if we are looking to change to the July 4th date, they would want to lock that in pretty quickly here because many of these work with communities year in and year out for their displays. And as we know this past year, there are not as many companies out there doing this right now. So yeah, I expect in the next couple of meetings I'll have something.
Okay, great.
Would we be locking in a date before we got a price?
No, we would have the price prior to locking in the
Okay.
date. Yeah, that would be part of the contract.
Okay.
Great. Great, thank you. All right, any questions? Nope. All right, Local American Rescue Plan Act, IGA.
Yes, so the Park District, we were recently notified by DuPage County that we've been allocated over $74,000 through the Local American Rescue Plan Act. The county, through their model, identified that based on the residents within DuPage County versus Will County and what we serve, that we were eligible to receive 66% of the funding that we had requested through the grant program that they have. This is to cover costs and reimburse the Park District for costs associated with COVID. As part of that, we received an IGA from DuPage County, and the purpose of the IGA was to provide a process for reimbursement and the funding and define the eligibility for the items that we could receive the reimbursement for. In working with Dirk, I proceeded with signing the IGA in order for us to keep that process moving forward so that we could receive that reimbursement. And we will look to, at the next meeting, bring the agreement to the board for the agreement to be ratified by the board. So wanted to provide an update there. We are also working with Will County to receive similar types of funding for, again, COVID-related items as well as other projects that are eligible underneath the grant program.
All right, thank you. All right, department updates. Bridget, administration?
I have a couple of things. The 2022 Labor Day Parade is scheduled for 9/5/22, and registration is due by August 9th. We typically do have an entry in this parade, commissioners, and one of our programs, or a couple of them. Currently, the lawn dancers, we weren't able to get enough participants. That leaves potentially our flags group, our Fun with Flags and Stepperettes that marched with us last year. If you're interested, I do want to get our registration in pretty quickly. I do have till the 9th, but any kind of group. We had considered also potentially, if it works out, getting the hay wagon to ride if we had enough participants for commissioners and family members. So I'll look for an invitation in the next couple of days before tomorrow or early next week. I also wanted to update on the logistics for a strategic plan. Note that we did move up our workshop on the 25th, moved it a little later to 6 o'clock, and the workshop on the next day, the 26th, will begin at 6 o'clock.
Bridget,
One of them's at
I'm sorry, the 26th will begin at
Right.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, sorry. 6 o'clock for the 25th. Keep mixing that up. And then we will have like light dinner served beforehand, so I'll give you more information about that. And we're confirmed with, I believe, Fort Hill for the 25th and RCC for the 26th. Anything else we wanted to add with that?
Yeah, we also wanted to make the board aware that on the 26th, that workshop, we will also bring any agenda items, a consent agenda for any items that we would be seeking approval in lieu of having a meeting then again the next night on the 27th. So instead of meeting 3 nights in a row, we'll reduce it down to the 2.
And both of these workshops will be special meetings that we will adjourn to executive session after we open the meeting and do some business. That's all.
Thank you. Finance?
Hi, good evening. So it's budget time. It's budget time. That's really what our team is working. I know, it doesn't seem like it ends if you ask staff. It's year-round, but now is when we're really kicking it off. We've held internal training already, and we'll be gathering data now from departments mid-August in preparation for the mid-year review that we'll be sharing with you on August 25th at that meeting. And lastly, really quick, Brad, Jeremy, and I met with Eric Anderson. We had a nice review of our debt portfolio, so stay tuned. We're going to be working on that a little bit and also bringing some data on options as we work through the strategic plan, what we're looking at for borrowing options in the future. So we're going to start through finance with that, and it will eventually work our way to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Golf? Or you golf today? All right.
Kevin's out of town and provided me with the following update for golf. The 2022 Men's Amateur Championship was unfortunately canceled last weekend after the courses received over 4 inches of rain on Saturday and Sunday morning. 138 participants had registered for the event, and staff was looking forward to providing an excellent weekend of championship golf. However, the heavy rain and severe weather forced the cancellation of the tournament, and all participants will be receiving a refund of their entry fees. The storms that canceled the men's amateur did result in some significant rainfall and several lightning delays, but both courses fortunately did not experience the winds or tornadoes that caused damage to the ball fields and several other areas in Naperville. The courses were flooded temporarily by the downpours Saturday and Sunday morning, but staff was able to clean up quickly any flood damage, and both courses had recovered completely by Monday afternoon. Work has begun preparing for renovations at Springbrook Golf Course, with our contractor beginning to install erosion control fencing around several areas of the golf course. Wadsworth Golf Construction expects to begin breaking ground next week. Springbrook is open for play through Sunday, including our last official weekend of permanent tee times. Our members and permanent tee time groups will have the ability to make tee times at Naperbrook, but we are expecting the demand will limit the availability of the prime morning and weekend tee times. Staff has been working with marketing to update all of our members, leagues, and frequent players regarding the closing of Springbrook and what options they have for tee times at Naperbrook. We've also been communicating the practice area and clubhouse at Springbrook will remain open during construction. Staff will be providing weekly updates on our website on the progress of the work at Springbrook Golf Course, with details of the changes occurring and pictures showing what is happening during construction.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Human Resources?
Okay, we're going to keep the weather theme going here a little bit. So as you know, Naperville experienced severe storms and an EF0 tornado on Saturday morning. Our initial concerns were the cleanup and functionality of the 95th Street Plaza splash pad, Weather reports had indicated that the weather would clear up and temperatures would rise into the 90s, likely drawing people to the facility. Park staff did a phenomenal job cleaning up debris and removing hazardous trees. So much so that the lacrosse tournament began to play later that day in the afternoon. So Frontier Park Fields 7 and 8, directly south of the plaza, suffered the most damage. The Field 7 cinder block dugouts will require an assessment by a structural engineer, and the Field 8 backstop and outfield fence were damaged. The outfield fence, it was one of the pictures that I had sent through. The posts were askew, the mesh was all over the place. It was bizarre to see, actually. But a claim has been filed with Paderma. An adjuster has been on site, so we're going to keep that process rolling to get things repaired. There's going to be 3 components of work that the district will secure repair quotes for: fencing, dugout roofing, and masonry work. Paderma will review and approve the cost proposals. Once approved on their end, the intent is to bring emergency contracts that are exempt from the bidding process and seek supermajority approval at board meetings as early as August. The time is of the essence, as the repairs need to be fully completed ahead of the spring 2023 program season. There will be other expenses too, but a lot of those are going to be ordering of different replacement things like bleachers, so those will be separate. Any questions about the tornado? Okay. Want to talk a little bit about our outdoor AEDs. So the district and the city partnered with the placement of AEDs in various parks across the district. And then in 2019, it really became apparent that we needed a written agreement, largely due to turnover and people not knowing who was responsible for what. On the district side, safety manager Becky Cooper from my team has worked to establish the agreement. We've been advised that the agreement has been cleared through the city's legal department, and we're awaiting confirmation on when the city will consider the agreement for approval. The agreement will come before you for consideration at the August 11th meeting. This has been 3 years in the works. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. For information technology, I have just 2 updates this evening. First, we're currently reviewing proposals for a major project for updating our email infrastructure, taking care of some systems that are fast approaching end of life, end of support, to also, along with the updates, bring other collaboration and efficiencies to the district along with that. I'm intending to bring a proposal to the board at the next meeting. And then the other big item is we have at long last hired our new sysadmin who starts on Monday. So we're very excited for Jarrett Piper to join us and get him ramped up as quickly as possible. So, great.
Good evening, Commissioners. I have a few updates for you tonight. So now that it's the end of July, we're all thinking about autumn already, right? It's kind of crazy, but we are, because we're the Park District. So as of yesterday, Wednesday, July 27th, the Autumn 2022 Digital Program Guide is now available on our website at napervilleparks.org/program guides. And let me try that again. Registration for residents will begin on Monday, August 1st, so that's coming up very quickly here. I always bring to you kind of an idea of web traffic and things that we're seeing, which has been really important to take a look at over the last couple of years since we've been virtual and exclusively digital. And as I always like to say, we continue to trend in the right direction, which is excellent. So we take a look at the first day of web traffic for when the virtual program guide is released, and then later on for the first day of registration. So obviously with the virtual being released yesterday, we looked at data for the first 24 hours. And we had more than 117,000 page views. And just so we can compare that, it's an increase of 18.1% compared to the prior season, which is summer of 2022. And comparing it to a year ago, so the release of the autumn 2021 digital guide, it's up 61.4%. So very excited about that. Staying just for another second with the topic of autumn, Commissioners received our autumn events card, which we always love releasing our new information for the upcoming season and everything going from August through December, actually. So it's a great resource. It's going to be in our facilities shortly for the public to to put on their fridges and get ready for the next season. Then finally, I've got our sponsorship update, which I also like to bring to you periodically. The board memo from July 8th highlighted the exceptional performance of the sponsorship and advertising sales through June of 2022. And from a year-over-year perspective, our 2022 revenue of $274,298 is ahead of 2021's revenue by 16.3%. So, in just looking at this data and how our revenue continues to increase and how our sponsorship program continues to grow, which is what we like to see, I wanted to give you some insight as to why we're seeing this growth, and there's several reasons. So we've increased our opportunities over the last couple of years, particularly over the last 12 months, and that was through the addition of things like the hopscotch courts, the ground decals, the feather banners, things of that nature that go in our different facilities. We've also been very successful in expanding our current sponsor contracts, which is great. Always great to grow the business with the sponsors that you already have. Also, businesses seem to be getting back to normal and really wanting to engage with the community. And they see the Park District as a very valuable partner to do that and be able to reach residents directly through our events and other means. And then we're also finding a lot of success targeting new businesses in Naperville. As new businesses come into the community, we're working with the chamber. We're doing some outreach and some research as far as just finding out, if there's any new opportunities or any other businesses that are out there that maybe changed management or other cases. So we're able to grow in that regard as well. Any questions?
I have a question. The paid views, are we marketing in a different way or publicizing it more? Do you have any theories on why it's so much higher?
For the page views of the digital program guide?
Yeah.
We have made a concerted effort, I will say, over the last year and a half. So it was summer of 2020 was our first digital program guide, and we really put into place a very comprehensive marketing program. Whereas before it was a lot of the program guide was landing in people's mailboxes, so that was really the trigger. Once we knew we didn't have that trigger anymore, we put together a very comprehensive plan that was a combination of digital marketing. So there's some paid, not a lot of paid, email marketing, social media, print, we've got our digital signs. It's just a wide variety that we're really starting to see a lot of traction with that lately. So it's excellent.
Great work.
Yeah, thank you.
And the whole
Appreciate
team.
it.
That's wonderful.
Any questions? Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good evening. In terms of law enforcement activity in the park districts, we've just kind of hit our stride for the summer in that we've got the beach covered, we've got the Riverwalk covered, and every evening just about every evening we've been able to deploy our bikes, our patrol, our foot patrols, and even ATVs. So I can tell you unequivocally that nobody's more excited about the kids going back to school in a couple weeks than your park police. That being said, this coming week we have National Night Out will be on Tuesday, and then next weekend we will be hosting Irish Fest down at Frontier Park, and then we will have the triathlon Sunday morning down at Centennial Beach. So in terms of planning in the wake of what took place in Highland Park, we're working as close as we ever have with the city police, and the comprehensive planning it's more comprehensive than it's ever been. So other than that, things have truly been kind of quiet.
Thank you.
All right, we'll start off with a little bit more information related to the weekend's tornado. With peak speeds estimated at 80 miles per hour, the tornado's path first took it through Frontier Park, followed by Crestview Knoll, Pradle Park, and Cloud Creek Greenway. Despite the ferocity of the storm, we feel somewhat fortunate that the damage was not any worse. We did suffer numerous tree issues within those parks. We also need to replace a number of fencing panels at the 95th Street Plaza splash pad. We had significant fencing damage, as Katie had mentioned, at multiple ball fields at Frontier Park and Pradle Park. We will need to replace several sets of spectator bleachers, and we did lose a park sign at Frontier Park. Staff did an excellent job working through the elements, including through several lightning delays and heavy rains. Over the weekend, assessing the situation, securing areas, and tending to safety priorities. We're still in the midst of cleanup, and we're working with our procurement claims adjuster and contractors on next steps. But I'm happy to report that the splash pad was able to be reopened later that same day on Saturday, and 2 of the softball fields at the Frontier Hub that were damaged were usable again by Tuesday evening. Last week, Park District staff had a follow-up meeting with representatives from Naperville Little League. We began to formulate plans for a volunteer program consisting of projects that could take place on Little League fields throughout town with the assistance of Park District staff. We're expecting the first pilot projects to kick off in August and plan on developing and growing the program moving forward. We also discussed working with Little League on identifying individuals affiliated with the organization who may be interested in part-time work for parks, with their main focus being the mowing of ball fields at either Nike, Knock, or DuPage River sports complexes. More to come on that one. Finally, there was initial conversation between the groups regarding the possible conversion of 2 infields to synthetic turf. Little League presented the idea of potentially donating close to up to half the cost for anticipated cost for the project. Both sides will need to continue to investigate, and as more information becomes available, we'll be sure to keep the board updated. Throughout the year, I've been providing regular updates on some of the hiring challenges in parks. In an effort to leave no stone unturned when it comes to searching for solutions, we've addressed the issue by implementing multiple strategies. Recently, I met with some of my counterparts to discuss options regarding several unfilled part-time positions that have remained open throughout the year. As a result, we've decided to reallocate unspent budgeted wages into more desirable part and full-time positions and look to have those filled as soon as this fall season. In addition to those position changes, we've also used unspent wages on contractual services. Earlier this week, our tree services vendor began tree and bed mulching within our Central Parks divisions, and they've been doing a really bang-up job and are looking to wrap up their list possibly as early as tomorrow. On the Riverwalk, a contractor was chosen to assist with the maintenance task along segment 5 and should be on site to start the work within the next 2 to 3 weeks. Both sets of work came in very reasonably priced, and we're looking into possibly adding additional services once the first batch of work is complete. Historically in the Parks Department, our 3 maintenance divisions have always been quick to share equipment and resources with each other, but we haven't very regularly shared personnel. That's changed recently, and for example, today, South Park sent 7 staff members to our Riverwalk crew to assist with herbicide applications and weed control. And as time permits, we'll seek additional dates and projects for crews to collaborate on. And that's your Parks update.
Thank you, Director Quigley, to you, your team, all of staff that helped with the tornado cleanup. Especially, I know that morning, like you mentioned, the storms continued. There was quite a bit of hail in the area. I was really impressed with how quickly everything got cleaned up. So thank you.
Fortunately, we're getting a little bit good at it.
When Kevin Finnegan was here, I don't believe we had any tornadoes, and then since you've taken over, I think we've had 2.
We're just challenging staff, right? Thank you.
Is that the Finnegan administration or the Wilson-McGurry? I don't know which one.
It's a good point.
So tonight, I just want to touch on the 2023 Capital Projects Virtual Open House. This is ongoing. This is part of our annual budget process. We issue communications inviting the public to comment on a capital improvements proposed for 2023. For each of the proposed high-profile projects, there is a brief project description, a location map, and contact information for the project manager associated with the project listed on our website. Residents are encouraged to view the projects and submit the comments and questions via email to project managers associated with each project. The comment period will run through Wednesday, August 10th, and that's about the typical duration that we gather input. The community input received during the comment period will be reviewed and considered as projects are designed. And cost estimates are prepared as part of the 2023 capital budget and operating budget development processes. Also, just so you know, as a board, every year we take all the input received through the written communications, the emails, we share it with you in a weekly packet. So you'll have that in a couple of weeks after August 10th, but you get to see all that. Next, I just want to report on another topic related to the Nike Sports Complex Ballfield Hub Water Service Line Replacement Project. This was an item that I discussed with the board on June 23rd. The scope of work includes replacement of a 2-inch water line that connects to the Ballfield Hub building at Nike Sports Complex. Immediately following the bid opening on June 29th of this project, it was identified that an addendum released during the bidding phase reflected a different time later in the same day. Staff consulted with legal counsel and identified that the best approach is to rebid the project and present a board memo in August combining the actions of rejecting all bids from the first round on June 29th and move to approve the contract for the lowest responsive bidder for the second round of bidding. The shift in contract execution timeframes from July to August is not expected to impact the project implementation originally planned for this fall. And just to report, we had the bid opening for round 2 today. The lowest bidder amount was $78,500. This is for the base bid and alternate 1. This beat all the other contracts in the lowest bid from June 29th, which was $87,300. So we just want to report on that. So when you see the reject all bids, you know why. And then that the recommendation is to move forward with this, the bid today and the bidder that we received. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, quick update here. Well, actually not quick, but beach memberships. We've exceeded the 2022 budget already, and we are currently on track with the daily sales to meet budget. So as long as the weather stays nice, we'll be in a good place. As typical with every year, we have the same issue with staffing. We're coming into August, so be prepared. We can make changes with and do shifting with staffing throughout the beach and all that, other than the lifeguards. So depending on where we're at with lifeguards, will depend on if we have to close certain sections of the beach during times throughout the rest of the month of August, okay? Unfortunately, we're also seeing an issue with staffing with our concession operations also. The priority is going to be to staff the grill, and then if we're able to, we will also continue to staff the cafe. If not, we may have to adjust operating hours at the cafe. Our first outdoor movie will be shown tomorrow at the 95th Street Plaza, and our popular bike race for children, Junior Tour de Naperville, will be next Saturday, August 6th at Wolf's Crossing. Summer programming is coming to a close with a couple of the programs, Masters Softball Tournament next week, and then also day camps will end on August 12th, and then we're back to school. Overall, summer participation has seen a high level of participation in almost every level and area. We continue to receive feedback, and I've already shared this with Parks and Rec, but I thought the rest of the board would like to hear too. Positive feedback on our Neuroflex fitness membership. This program was launched initially as a program called Big Moves 2 years ago. The program started with 8 members and has now reached over 40 members in the program. The program is specifically designed to manage neurological conditions through active movement and community support. It's also in a hybrid format, so you can do it in person or online. Exciting, I don't have all the details, but Magical Starlight Theater is excited to bring back our winter theater production. We are in the final phases of working out the licensing, and then we'll release the show title the week of August 8th, so more to come on that. Last but not least, as mentioned by Samara, the fall program guide has been released, and as many of you may have noticed, that on the front cover is the good sportsmanship demands on all of us. Depends on all of us, I apologize. This fall, we plan to focus attention on the need for everyone to work together and push the message out about positivity, encouragement, and respect for all. This message is directed to not only just the players, but to parents, spectators, and coaches. So as you all know, this continues to be a problem, and we're really gonna push our message out there for everyone. Any questions?
On that message, I think one of the most effective things you can do is put it on the back of T-shirts or coaches' T-shirts, because it's a visible. I mean, every fan, everybody can see that. I think at one point maybe with one of the soccer programs we did that. Is that right, or am I remembering that right?
Yeah, we started a campaign right before COVID hit, and then it went downhill. But yes, it was on the back of shirts.
And I think that on the back of shirts is very effective. I mean, you can put little signs all over that people ignore, but the back of the shirt, everyone is looking at the coach and everything like that. So that would, for whatever it costs a screen printer, an extra $1.20 or $1.10 to put that on the back, that might be worthwhile if we're serious about the message, which obviously we are.
Yes, for sure. I agree with you. Yep. Thank you. Anybody else?
Okay, sounds
thanks.
great. Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone. The next regular meeting of the Naperville Park District Board of Commissioners will be August 11th, 2022 at 7 p.m. at Fort Hill Activity Center in the multipurpose room.
Move to adjourn the July 28th, 2022 regular meeting at 7:30 p.m.
Second.
Voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everyone.